I'm going to go more over on technical analysis and kind of reading an actual chart on a stock, so you can see about like, well, why is everyone talking about RSI being 80, 60, 50, or the SMA is 40, or it's crossing. Let's get into like what all that stuff means. So the very basic is a candlestick. Okay, and I just chose this one right here. So when you have a candlestick, you kind of have four major things that you need to look at.
Chris, Chris,
Go ahead.
yeah, we actually don't see your screen quite yet.
Oh,
That's-
oops. Okay, how about now?
yes.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. So with the candlestick, this is just the basic piece of knowledge that every trader should look at, whether they're a day trader, they're an investor, or whomever. It's important to see these when you're looking at that, so then you can base your decisions on if you want to purchase a stock or an option or whatnot. So I'm just focusing on this green one right here right now. So if it's green, green really means, I always see green as being good. So if it's green, it's good, meaning its value went up. Okay, so now let's kind of break down what this is. So when we look at the bar, generally the bar is the bottom type of the thickness of the bar. Okay, that's the opening price. Okay, let me make that a little bit smaller, and then I'll put an arrow there too so you can see. Okay, so when I look at that, that's the opening price. Okay, now the thick part of the bar, that means the closing price, and I'll throw out some numbers so you guys can see what that means, closing price. All right, now you have these these thinner bars that will not have color, and those are called your wicks. Just kind of like, that's why they call them candlesticks, because a candle has a wick, and you light the wick, and it goes away, and you have a wonderful wonderful brightness. So what those actually mean is that is your highest price. And what do you think the bottom part's going to be? Well, that's going to be the lowest price. So looking at this candlestick, I have 4 pieces of information. Actually, I technically have 5. And I'll explain what I mean by 5. Is I know when I look at a candlestick, this is the opening price. So right at the thickness, the thick part of the candlestick, that's the opening price. So for whatever duration this is, we could just say this is an hour candlestick. So in 1 hour, this is where the stock ABC was at. This is where it closed. Now, during the trading time, it's not obviously it goes in between. It does. But it also there's a very high point and a low point. And for all of you math nerds out there, you can correlate this to a box and whiskers plot. The only thing that's different is it doesn't have your quartiles that measure the percentages. So you would think, if you're a math person, you would think that this bar right here would measure 50% of all the stock prices being traded at. That's not, okay. Just a slight correlation is it's similar to a box and whiskers plot, because you get your highest price, you get your lowest price, then you get kind of like the trade in between the opening and the closing price. So if I were to actually put values to this, let me make them smaller. I would say ABC was at $10. Oops. So this would be at $10, and let's just say this stock went up pretty high, and so it would be $13. And highest price, let's just say this was $13.50. $13.50. I'm trying to make it not all clunked together with stuff. And we'll just say the lowest price is $9.50. Okay, so again, just going after what a basic candlestick would be is the thick part of the bottom, that's your opening price. So we could just say this stock opened in at $10, and through the hour, it's trading. And if you watch this for an hour, which I may or may not have done, I have done. So, but when you stare at these for a long time, you see these mold together, like, or they're molding, meaning they're being created. And then finally, once after that hour passes, it's set in stone. Then it moves on to the next candlestick. Okay, and so the highest price, that's the top of the wick. The lowest price is the bottom of the wick. All right. So now there's also a fifth piece of information is I just know what the range is between them. And I chose these numbers on purpose because they're easy for me to do. If I were to say, well, what's the range? If I were looking at this stock in 1 hour, this stock technically traded between $4, not at $4, but the price for that stock was between $4, because what's $4 plus 9? $13.50. If I were to subtract 4, $9.50. So that's my range, and that can give you a good idea when you're looking at if you're trading, because if you have a lower candlestick, that could tell you something. But we'll go into that later. Okay. Now, if you see one that's red, it's technically the opposite. Red could be bad. All right. Now, well, maybe unless you're a short seller, that could be good for you. Okay. So it still matches the same things in regards to. Come on. Okay, it's not wanting to work with me. So that's still your highest price. This is the only difference. So when it was green, we meant green was good. So that means we were making money if we were going long, or we purchased it. So the only difference is if you look at a red one, the top part, the top thick part, that is the opening price. Okay? And so if you're thinking, okay, well, what do you think this thick bottom part is? That's the closing price. And then again, you still have your wicks. The wicks always stay the same, highest and lowest. So if I were to even just use the same values, and I looked at this at another time, and it's just magically, it just happened to all be the same. Oops. Okay. So just looking at them. So what I knew, so let's just say this is the next hour. And it just miraculously went the opposite direction. Okay, and it's not drawn to scale, so I'm sorry. But so I know if I were to look at this candlestick, the opening price, meaning at that hour or that 5 minutes or that day, whichever you look at, and we'll go into that a little bit more specifically. This started at $13. It hit $13.50, so it was looking upwards. And if you actually are to watch these candlesticks move in action, these change colors, depending on the time frame you have. Okay, so it could have started here and started to move up here, so it started to turn green. But guess what? Let's just say Morgan Stanley said, "We're going to sell this." No, I'm not referring to any stock that we're all watching. Okay, so there was an immediate sell-off. Went down to $9.50, but then essentially it closed at $10. Okay? So the only difference between these two is if it's green, you look from the bottom up if you want to see the price of when it opened and closed. If it's red, you look at the top then to bottom. So green is good, red bad. So if it's red, the value went down. Okay, and Dan got it. Okay, so let me actually show you what these mean in real time. Okay, so let me just switch screens. Do I click new share? Yes. Okay, just give me one moment because I'm trying to get, okay. All right, so this is through TD Ameritrade. Now, some of you may use Schwab, some of you may use other like Webull, but some of the things are the same. okay? And what I mean by that is just some basics. So let's just focus on this first chart right here. Give me one moment. I want to do just this one. Now I added some other stuff on here, so just all you want to do is pay attention to this top part. So actually, just to make it even easier, I'm going to remove these studies. Okay, now these are where it's all ties to math, in my opinion. Okay, now the layout, it may be different, but the big thing that I want you to pay attention to is where it says 5M. Okay, so what does 5M mean? Well, 5, so it's in an increment of 5, but we need to know what that means. M would stand for minute, so let me write that down. So M is minute. If you see D, that stands for day. So let me get back to that. So on mine's different, but if I were to look at these, and these are very similar to most of the brokers, if I were to just look at this one right here, this says 1H. Oh, I forgot to put H, what H means. It's pretty self-explanatory. H would mean hour, but I'll write it down just in case. Oops, why did I not do that? So H, hour. So I know I'm out of the time difference because I know I did minute, day, hour. We'll just say we're, oops, go back. Okay, so if I look at, let me move that. I'm sorry, guys. Sometimes it's not as, oops, not as perfect. There we go. Okay, so if I were to look at these, so if I were to select a chart, and I see it says 1D colon 1M. Now it may have a parenthesis or a comma. I would just have to look at it. But what this is telling me right here, 1D means I'm looking at a chart for 1 day. And in terms of increments, it's in 1 minute candlestick increments. So if I click this, whew, I got a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, now this looks really ugly and this is hard to interpret. And the reason why is from 2 o'clock our time, I'm sorry, 4 o'clock our time to, what time is it right now? To 6:23. Each one of those is a minute. So if you were to do the math, I mean, I don't know, 20 hours by 60. So there's about 12, let's just say 1,200 candlesticks. Now that's a lot of data to look at. So for day trading, for me, I look at, so 5D means 5 day, but I'm going to see my candlesticks in 5M, meaning 5 minute increments. So okay, yeah, it still looks kind of wonky and there's a lot of stuff, but now I'm not sure how you would zoom in on other ones, but if I were to look at it, I could play with it. But if I were just to look at this, each one of these candlesticks, this is 5 minutes. So if I were to think, okay, well, how many candlesticks would it be for an hour? Well, how many minutes are in an hour? 60 minutes. Okay. So if I were to take 60 divided by 5, that's 12. So that would mean if I want to actually look at the data for 1 hour, I would just count back 12 candlesticks to kind of look and see what's going on. So if I were to look at this one right here, now again, other brokers may have more data that pops up because I have what's called a floating box. So you can see where it says date, Y, /NQ, 5D, 5M, open, high, low, close, things like that, the range. That tells you that data. But just looking at this, wow, there was a lot of action going on with here because this range is high, and that happened in 5 minutes. And just so you know, for NQ, each point right here is worth 20 bucks. So if I looked at the range, let's just say it was 15 times $20, that means this future contract fluctuated $300, and that's a lot. Okay. So just by seeing that, are there any questions on the difference between the green and the red, or the wicks, or the thick part? I'll just wait about 10 seconds.
Nothing in chat so far. So.
Nothing in chat? Okay, all right, because I'm more focused on the chart. All right, so that's just the basic of basics, and I'm just trying to start really slow because I don't want to confuse someone when I get into more advanced things. Okay, so I'm going to erase this part, and I'm going to talk about the now. Ken and Connor, should I talk about trending and drawing the charts, or should I move with the first technical indicator? Because I think drawing the trend lines can help, then understand the technical indicator, or which would you prefer?
I think drawing just like the trends would be helpful. So that
Okay.
idea.
Okay, I can do that. So different brokers have different programs. They do allow you to draw trend lines. It could just be different. So for me, I know how to use TOS, or Thinkorswim, which is offered through TD Ameritrade. So I click on drawings and drawing tools, and you've got a whole bunch of different things right here. Okay, now I'm just going to focus. Let me go back real quick. I'm just going to focus on today at a 5-minute range. Oops, why is that not doing that? So I'm just looking at today. I have no idea what's going on in the world, which when you're trading futures, that's not a good thing. But let's just say I have no idea what's going on, and I want to look at we're at 5 minutes. So this is a 5-minute chart, and I'm looking at this. Now, there's one thing to think about when you're doing charts. The smaller the time frame, the more specific you'll get. So think of it as a microscope. Okay, the larger time frame, the larger the time frame, the broader you will get. You will get. Okay, so think of that as a telescope. And I'll explain that in a little bit, but I just want you to get that mindset in. So what I mean by that is, if I were to look at my different options, if I go to 1 day, 1 minute, I'm only looking at one little piece of the story. So think of a chart as a story. But then if I go to 5 days, 15 minutes, then I'm seeing more of the story of what the chart's going to be telling me. Okay? If I go to 30 minutes, 10 days, it's like a telescope. You know, you're kind of looking at further and looking at more and more, and you can see a better picture. Okay? Do people look at, so if you look down here, I added these custom ones. This is 3 years, 1 week candlesticks. This is 5 years, 1 week candlesticks. Don't worry about what this one is, because this goes by ticks, and that's a whole different thing. But the main ones is the 5 day, 15 minute, 5 day, 5 minute, 10 day, 30 minute, hour, 4 hour, and then one year, 1 day. So you'll see 365 candlesticks. Okay, so right now, I'm with a microscope right now. Now, I don't know anything that's going on before 4 o'clock today, but I'm just giving you an example of what's going on. So when I look at this, I'm going to start drawing some, what are they called? Our trend lines. So trend lines are basically it's kind of like going back to algebra, kind of see where's the graph taking us. So I know this thing hit all the way up here. I'm seeing some other stuff. Let me take off the floating box real quick. That way you can see a little bit better. Oops. Okay, so I'm just seeing, like, there's just stuff all over, but I notice one pattern. The one pattern I notice is, notice right here, this wick. Now, some people will say, you know, wicks can show volatility within within that time frame. I disagree only because these, as you can see, this one's forming, it's molding. It's kind of like molding the wax, as you can think about it, but it takes 5 minutes, and this just started. So after 5 minutes, this candle will the mold will be set, and then it will move on to the next one. So if you saw prior, this was just a thick candlestick, and now look, you've got a long wick, and you see this is starting to form the thick handle. Okay, so I include wicks because nothing's set in stone. No one has a crystal ball. We don't know how the candlesticks are going to form if we're actually trading real time, which this is real time right now. Now, looking overall, I can see, even though this topped really high, and the reason why is because at 4 o'clock when futures start, this goes all over the place. It's just trying to set direction. So I'm just going to kind of look at the next high point. Now, should you do this all the time? No. But I'm just doing it just so you can see a simpler comparison. But if you notice, this was the highest point. When was the next highest point? Right there. Okay. When was the next highest point? Right here. Okay. Next highest point, kind of like right there. So it's up to you on how you draw these. Everyone's different. But more of a uniform one is you kind of want to connect, depending on how you're trading, is you want to kind of connect your highest point to your least highest point, which this seems to be kind of right there, but I want real time, so I want more accuracy. So I'm just going to click right there. So what does that tell us? So if I were to draw this, and you can draw this with Schwab and with Webull, and I think Ken can show how to draw it with that, and I can show you how to do it with Schwab. But when you draw these trend lines, this can kind of give you an idea of where the stock's going to go and how should I proceed. If it passes this trend line, should I short it? That's what this trend line would kind of tell you. If it's way below, it may be a signal to buy. Now, when I look at this, I also see a lot of other patterns. So I see these wicks down here. They're all over the place. But, and this is at 440, this starts to kind of see a small trend down here. So it's slowly, it's tipping right here. Just at this point, even though this is what's called archival data, meaning it's just data that's set in stone. But if you look at all these, if I were to start drawing a trend line without even seeing any of this, I would say, hey, this hit this point multiple times, which was at 12,463. So what could that mean? The strategy would likely mean if it hits this, I may want to buy. If it goes past it, we don't know. We'd have to continue to see what happens. But if you see on this point, it hit this for, let's see, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. But then see what happened. It went upwards, then it went down, continued to go down. So obviously this trend line, it still kind of works slightly, but this trend line's not working as well as I thought. And the reason why is because it's now past this multiple times. This may not be accurate. So when you're drawing trend lines, it just depends on if you're day trading or if you're looking at a broader scale. And so let me show you what I mean by more of a broader scale. Let me delete those real quick. But so going back to just drawing them, do people see on how I did that? I didn't include this one because, again, I'm doing futures, and even with stocks, right when the market opens, generally that goes all over the place, and that's where you get most of the volume, and then it sets its direction depending on which way it wants to go. But if you can see on this trend line that I did, so I basically drew what I would call my resistance. And so resistance is likely to sell once it hits this line. Likely to sell. Likely. Now, the bottom part that I drew, that's called your support. Likely to buy. Once it hits this line. Now, did my support line that I drew, did it work? Yeah, it kind of did. but it's not as good as what it could have been. Again, you know, because we don't know. But just that even looking, and this was the 635 one, that thing hit. And so I'm kind of curious to see where this guy's going to go. So I'm actually just going to delete, oops, I'm going to delete this trend line down here. But I'm curious if this will actually follow. So what does this tell us? For me, looking at this graph, even without knowing what a support is, so when it's likely going to buy, it's touching that resistance line, meaning it hit where it needed to go, people are going to sell. And that would be your indicator to either sell or to short, depending on how you want to do it. Okay, so now let's kind of go back into the time frames and looking at between what a microscope would be or a telescope. So let's see, that's going down. That's interesting. So if I wanted to see the bigger picture, because right now it's like, what do I see right here? Oh, the market's going down. So this is NASDAQ futures. So it's showing right now that likely that this may open up negative. But let's see the bigger picture. So if I were to zoom out, so I'm at 5 minutes, I'm going to look at 15. Okay, so I know this is a lot of data, but if you can see, it's still up there, but it's slowly going down. So we may not be sure on what the direction the market's going to be. If I were to look back and see and just kind of take a look at a bunch of stuff, notice how a lot of the data or the range, or what I call a zone, I can draw what's called zones. And zones could be the potential to either buy or sell. So I won't use this because this is all over the place. But if I look right here for the majority, oops, the majority is that went into that zone. Yeah, it went down here for a little bit, but you see the majority, it went within this zone. So if you do your charting, depending on how you want to do it, now this is 15 minutes, so we're kind of zooming back out. We're seeing more of a broader picture. We're using our telescope. And so I can see likely where to go. Now, if I didn't have any of this information and I looked over here, if it passed that zone, then that would mean it's past its breaking point. Okay, if I wanted to draw another trend line, and again, this is what can get difficult because everyone is a Da Vinci, is what I tell people. Anyone can draw anything, and that's okay though, because people can see things differently than other people. But you can draw trend lines. So like and I'm just making this up, so there's no rationale on why I'm doing this. But if I were to look at this, I could say, all right, I'm going to draw trend lines right here because I noticed on the bigger picture it was kind of going here. There was a major dip from there, but it generally tried to touch it multiple times, and that's, I'm just kind of looking at it. Okay. With that, are there any questions on that before I move on to technical indicators? On the looking at the chat, I don't really see anything.
Yeah, no question. It looks like we're good. So
okay, cool. If anyone is in the chat, could you put a 1 in chat if you understand, just so I know, or I can go over it again. Nothing.
Yeah, we got a few ones. We got a 2. So
okay, cool. Now look, this just happened right here. Major breakout from that resistance line.
Yep. Yeah.
So now, again, see with futures, it's completely different with stuff. There could have been something that talked about whatever, new technology or things like that. So when you're dealing with futures, it's a little bit different. So you can see things like that. But let's maybe go into our favorite stock, Planeteer. Did I get it right?
Palantir.
Palantir. Yeah, I'm sorry. So let's just look at today. So I'm at the 5-minute chart, which I use that for day trading. But look, the trend line also applied almost a little bit. So if I were to look at this, look at these spikes right here, okay, or these wicks. They're all relatively, I mean, it looks like it's a lot, but really this is a 10-cent difference. Oh, I can talk about the converging and divergences, so I'll get into that. But when I look at that, I would draw a zone kind of like around where it includes all the wicks. But look, even extended hours, it hit those zones, that resistant zone. Now, again, remember, this is only a 10-cent difference. So with Palantir,
Good enough. Yeah.
did I get it right? Palantir?
Yep. Boom.
Okay, good. You can see that it hits that. Now, there are what you would consider multiple zones, because some people say, oh, well, resistance level 1 is this, resistance level 2 is this, resistance level 3. You can have as many as you want. So if you want to talk about in terms of resistances and supports, this was my top resistance, because even look after hours, and then it even spiked right before it closed, which was actually at, what, 6 o'clock? Yeah, it stopped. Now again, this is all archival data. This could be completely different tomorrow. But if I look at the bottom zone, now again, like I said, at the beginning, the market open, generally the first 5 to 10 minutes, that's going to go it can go in any direction. So it can also give you, some valuable data, but can also skew your data, because the first 5-10 minutes, it's all over the place. So if I were to look at this, the high was at roughly $22.37. It opened at 22.23. It went all the way down to 21.15. So if someone were to have bought a call at that and then sold it at the very high in the next 15 minutes, they made some big money right there. That would probably be about $200. I'm just guesstimating, because it went up roughly $2 in that call. So when looking at that, I can see, okay, so it's all over the place. But look, the wick still went down here, but also, what else did I notice? Right around here, there was also a support zone. So for this time frame, so again, we're at 5 minutes. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. So roughly for 45 minutes, this was touching there. Now again, when you're dealing with these charts, you have to be adaptable, because this stuff, you're not going to know all this stuff right now. So if I were to continue to look at this can go up tomorrow. And so at 2 a.m., I'm going to know if this is going to go past it or not. It may hit it and go down. We don't know. Okay. Now, if it continues to go up, then that's called a breakout. And if it were to continue to go down, that's a breakdown, break up or break down, however you want to interpret it. All right. So now you can see, I can see roughly a majority of Palantir was trading around here. I kind of guesstimated, because I kind of looked, okay, where does it hit? Where is it included most of the time? I see this because it went down, but then it went up, and yeah, it went up here. But I see most of it hitting here. I see it hitting here. I see it hitting there. It kind of went down here. I see it goes all the way down, but then guess what? It returned back to where it needed to. So this could have been a play by some of the bigger guys thinking, hey, I'm going to sell a lot to encourage more people to sell. Then more people panic. Then they're like, okay, thank you. We're going to buy. And then we'll just kind of do the normal trading. All right. Manipulation. I know. And it's shaking the weak hands. Okay, let me read the comments. So are there any questions?
I don't see.
Listen. Okay. Okay, so let me delete all this. So, or actually, you know what? Let me give another example. Let's go out, because I just was showing you the microscope. So let's see as the trader, like an investor. So I'm going to click the 1 year, 1 day. So I'm going to see each candle is considered 1 day's worth of data. Okay, and you can see my little drawings. Let me actually delete this text. So if I were to look at this, and I go back to my drawings, I would see my zone at the very beginning when Palantir first started. Okay, so there's a larger range because think about it. It first started, everyone's excited, there's hype. You know, we don't know, like, what's this company going to do? We have no idea. Okay, so if I were to look at this for this time frame, and it's nice because I don't have as much data, because I can draw more of a consensus, I can draw my zone like this. Okay, so it hit here, it hit there, but look, it still touches the bottom of those zones. Even when it went up, and we know the red means it obviously it sold for less that day, it still goes down. It starts to touch that zone. Now again, this zone, it looks like it's a lot, but we're only talking about roughly 20 cents. But it still follows it. But now, here's where the breakout happened. Because now look what's happening. Uh-oh. So is my zone correct now? Not really, because there's getting more data. Now, if I were to draw another thing, I could draw my support and resistance, or I would probably just draw support because now it's getting a lot of attention, so we don't know where it's going to go. But I would just start kind of where there's starting to be more larger candlesticks. And again, this is only because this stock is becoming insanely popular. But I'm just going to use the two bottom points to kind of get what my support level would be. Even drawing here from this point, you can see the data from here. This one touched it, but it's still, and this one touched it too, but it still kept going forward. Now, drawing the resistance point for this, you may want to use pivot points and other more advanced statistical tool or technical tools. But this is just basic drawing. I'm just drawing very, very basic. Do you want me to use another example for a larger company? If anyone has a stock they want to state, and I can show you how to maybe draw those to get a better idea.
I think we're good. So that was
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so when some people say, when they're predicting what where a stock may go at, and this is the roughest of the rough of the rough.
We did.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Chris. We got one person asking for Zoom. So
okay, all right. Let's take a look at Zoom. Oh boy, when I'm looking at this. Okay.
Let's say not much better.
Yeah, this is all over the place. However, if you look, so pre-COVID, this stock was slowly gaining attention, but then it gained a lot of attention. But you can still draw a trend line. So when you're doing a trend line, now see this stock, it kind of just was up and down a couple bucks, maybe about $10, which, okay, that's not bad. But I'm starting to see, and I'm seeing this because I know what these blue bars are. This means volume. There was a lot of volume on this day, and it drove the price up about $10. So I'm going to use that. Now, where am I going to connect? It's up to you on where you want to put it. I see some low points right here. Sure, I could keep it right there. I see one that went all the way down right there. I see some that went right there. It's up to you where you want to draw these. Because if you think about it, the larger your slope is going to be, these may not be as accurate. So me choosing here, that may not be a good point to draw because this was back in February. So does it make sense to draw back to February? Yeah, that can make sense. Now, do I want to maybe redo again, remember my slope is kind of the steepness or the narrowness of a line. So I wanted to hit the low points because maybe that can give me a better idea. So if I just were to draw that, oh wow, I'm way out. That's probably not a good idea. If I want to maybe go into maybe just this section. See, with Zoom, this is all over the place because, with COVID, more people are doing Zoom. but you can still draw your trend lines. So I would probably say, if you see right here, this volume, this was 53 million, and so for Zoom, that's a lot for Zoom. So I would actually more focus on this data set, this data range, because that may be more accurate. Now, will it be accurate in the next 2 months? I don't know. If it still follows the same patterns, yeah, then that may be accurate. So I'm going to remove that. So let's just focus on this. So if I were to say, what's my top resistance point? Well, my high was right here. Oops. But did it ever hit that? No. No, it did not. But if I look at my true resistance, and I'm just focusing right here, it hit that a couple of times. All right, and I'm not going to go into Fibonacci retracements or things like that, because I just want you just to get an idea of on that. So, but I can still see it still wants to hit roughly around here on the bottom. But I noticed from here to here, I could draw a trend line right there. But again, the thing that gets really hard with drawing trend lines and just kind of seeing price movement is this can all change in the next day. You know, no one expected COVID-19 to have a panic sell. No one expected, if you think about oil last year when some countries bombed 2 oil tankers from Britain. No one knew that was going to happen. So a lot of these things can change overnight or in a couple of days. For example, for Intel back in 2017, the CEO or the person below him had an affair with one of their secretaries. Well, that sent the price down. So what I'm trying to say is, no one has a crystal ball. You can follow just technicals. That's fine. But I like to tie in the fundamentals, which is, kind of known behind the company, and also the sentiment. What's going on in the world. So things that we don't know. If I were to look and see what's going on, I would say, so I know from this point to this point, it was going up, and it hit that point many, many times. It was breaking out right here. What they call is called testing. So this stock and the price, it tested the resistance line, the support line, but it continued to go upwards. And then it found its true resistance. Then it started to go down, down, down. Now I can't really draw a good line on there to make it look good, but I guess you could say it would be like that. These are just tools to help you understand, not saying this is going to be for sure, because look what happened the next day. So this was the so the 6th to the 9th, that was when they announced the vaccine. So look right here. This is a perfect point. Oh, go ahead.
We actually have a good question. So this one came from Braden. It's he says, do you feel like it's more accurate to draw it from the highs to the other highs, or do you feel like do you feel more accuracy comes from drawing trends based upon open and close versus highs and lows to avoid the wild swings?
So it is important to note wild swings, because you know where it can go. Knowing that's where investors truly think where they think a price is worth, even if there's a wild swing like that. So perfect example is from right here to here, because this is the 6th to the 9th. This is when the COVID vaccine was announced by, was it Pfizer? I think it was Pfizer that announced there with the 94% efficacy rate.
Yep, Pfizer.
So look, this stock went from roughly 500 to 425. I'm just taking the middle, just so you can see. So it dropped roughly 45. It actually dropped lower. It dropped to 413 that day. But now look, since all the news of Zoom and being popular from just this data point. Now, could it go all the way back down here? Yes. But look how high its price is right now. So that's why we have to continue to look at those wild swings, because it also gives us an idea of where investors may feel like, hey, I want to get out because this could be a bad investment, or hey, this may be a good buying opportunity. Now look, this was back before, this was September. This is September 3rd, 4th. So vaccines were in talk, but nothing happened. We you know, it's just like anything. We don't know when a vaccine was really going to be finished and when it's going to be distributed. We still don't know. We know we're close. But so if you recall, the S&P 500 or the ES, that shot upwards. Most tech stocks went downwards. And my sentiment analysis would be is if a vaccine is for COVID-19, then that would mean we're not as dependent on technology or technology companies than we would have been that previous week, because you know we need Amazon Prime for deliveries, we need contactless delivery, we need telecommunications, we need Zoom for meetings, we need we're more dependent on being independent in our own home to work and do our job. But so that's why this went down. But now look, this didn't hit its resistance line, but look what happened the next day. That was still with the with the vaccine news. It didn't touch it. Yeah, it's a $15 difference, but look, we kind of saw where investors would think, okay, this is kind of where we want to go, because it touched that again. Now it slowly went back up. There was more confidence in the stock or this company, but then it fell down again. Now, there were earnings for that, wasn't there?
I think, was earnings just Monday?
Yeah, Monday afternoon. So now I'm at a 15-minute chart just so you guys can see. So that's where things can get different in drawing trend lines, because if you see here, if I'm just looking at, so this is 15-minute and this is 5 days, you have a whole different trend line, because you can see roughly this is going up, 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 up. I'm just drawing that just because you can see it's going up, up, up. So when you're drawing trend lines, you may not have to draw a trend line, but you can draw a trend zone to give you an idea. Let's see if I can do this right. You can draw a zone, so you kind of can see where it's going and where it's not going. This is crudely drawn, just so you guys know. But you can see, because they're thinking, oh, Zoom's going up, hype, hype, hype. And what's the saying? Is it buy the news or whatever it is? I'm really bad with those. But they kept, or buy the hype, sell the news. Is that what it is? Something like that. So there was a lot of hype, and then finally once, and I've seen this many times with earnings, they'll hype it, and they'll do a big spike to get people like, oh, I'm going to get in, and then guess what? Dumps down, continues to dump down, dumps down even more. So if you bought a put, then you made probably a lot of money on that. But I think each call or option was like $3,500, and for that, even if you had an account of $50,000, you want to risk 5%, 10% of your account on one thing. Might want to take into consideration those things. Okay, so how are we doing on time?
Yeah, so it's just approaching about 7 o'clock. So in this case, I think this is a good spot for us to kind of take some questions from anyone. I think you covered a good amount. So this is very helpful as far as trend lines, a little bit more on the candlesticks. Cool. Anyone as far as the channel, do you guys have any questions or anything that you would like us to touch upon?
Because I can go over RSI, because that doesn't take very long, if you guys want me to go over that.
Yeah, let's go over RSI, yeah.
Okay, so it may just be 10 minutes. So, okay, so RSI stands for Relative Strength Index. And I can go over the math. If you want to know the math, DM me. I'll go over it. I'll work out some problems, and you'll probably be like, "Oh my gosh!" But basically, what it does is it indicates when to buy or sell a stock. Okay, so I'm going to keep it at the 15-minute chart, and I'm going to load. Give me a stock, something that you guys think would be a good example. PLTR.
Sure, why not?
Sure. Okay. I know Dan probably wants me to do that. So, um, so I'm going to add RSI to this. Now, how do you add these on um, other brokers? I can show you on Schwab. I can show you on Thinkorswim, but on Thinkorswim, you click the beaker, or in case if you don't know what a beaker is, the scientific glass. You click that, and I click the study RSI, and you click lower because you want that not, well, you can have it follow the chart, but I like to see it on the bottom. Okay, and then I click apply. Now, here's where a lot of the math comes in, and I'll explain that too. So if I click apply, you're going to see down here a whole bunch of stuff. So the general consensus is you have these zones. It's in percentage, so it can never, it can't go above 100 or to 0. And this just tells you kind of what the strength is of the stock. Is the stock in a bull run or is it in a bearish run? So I'm just going to look at, you want to look at where there's the red parts and the blue parts. So I'm going to focus on this part right here. Okay, so all right, it's trading, it's trading. You see this guy right here. Okay, it's going, and you can see it. I call them percentages. It's like, okay, it's at 57%. Uh-oh, big sell-off. Uh-oh. Okay, so it went. So when you're trading, when you're looking at this, you want to know when this passes 30 or when it goes above 70 or when it goes below 30. Now, this went below 30. Now, does that mean instantly to buy? No. What I generally like to do is wait and let it pass again above the 30 mark. Now, these are 15 minutes, so let me get a little bit closer in and kind of go back into that. So if you see, oh wow, there's just a major one. So these were 2 huge spikes, but as you see, as it comes up and it's starting to approach the 30 mark, that could be your signal to buy. And now, again, what I do is I do trailing stops because this can go down. These percentages can go downwards. Now, as you can see, this goes up, down, it's going all over. Now, a lot of people think, oh, this is just measuring what the stock's doing. That's not the case. Okay, even though there was there's more of a swing, but then it finally stabled off, these do not get measured like that. Okay, now what this does is when you look at these, and this is where some people get confused, they see length, that's the big thing, length, and it says a number, 14. So what that means is when you're looking at, this is on any technical indicator. So if you have MACD, RSI, price flow, movement, whatever it's called, CCI, anything, this length means how many candles length equals how many candles, it's calculating. So I'm at a 5-minute chart, 14. So really, in terms of going through data, this is 5 times 14. So 5 times 14, what is that, 70? So you're really looking at 70 minutes of data. That is. Okay. So now, let me get out of that. So now if I were to go out, so let's go to the day. So generally what traders look at is they look at the day. So here, so see, look, it's still going upwards. It's still red. Now, does that mean you should not buy this? No, it could just mean it's on a breakout or break up. So it's still going. Now, even see, look, the price is still increasing, but see how the relative strength is going down? It takes the price range and it averages it to kind of give it an idea. But see, still, even though this is going up, so this is a perfect example. See, this is kind of jumping up and down. This is going upwards. But now look at today or yesterday. It was still above 70, so maybe if you're just a short seller, you may think, I'm going to wait. Oh, look. It's now gradually going past 70. That can be your entry point to short sell. And then if I were to look at, let's see what's going on right here. If I were to look at the NASDAQ right now, So see, my trend line did not work at all. There was a huge trend. But see, up here, it hit 67. Now, could I have shorted at this point? Some people do 60. They change their percentages, but that's up to you. Because right here, there's no signal for anything. There was it didn't go below the blue and then started to rise above to then signal an entry point, nothing above the red to signal a short. So again, this may not be a good indicator. And there's other indicators that can help you in tangent or combined with them. So generally, if you were to say if an RSI is high, that would consider it's overbought and it's primed to sell, but not always, because it could just be in a giant trend to continue to go upwards. If it's blue below 30 and it continues to go downwards, that just means it's a continuous selling point. But that can give you a general idea. You could also kind of consider it, I say this loosely, it's kind of like a battle between bulls versus bears, who's winning. If you're at 50, you're even, so you don't really know. But if it's going higher than 50, maybe it's more bullish. If it's going below 50, it's more bearish, meaning there's more sellers, but then that's an opportunity to buy. If it's if it's above 50, maybe if it's at 65%, hits the 70, not sure, that may be an indicator to sell. You just have to do your due diligence. I'm getting, Kyle, can you go through the process of buying an option if there's time?
So I actually just sent him a link to our YouTube channel,
Okay.
Other things. Since we did previously cover that already, but
okay.
First on time, and I think this is a good spot as far as for us to conclude. In this case, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Once again, if you want to be able to watch our other videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have the PersonaFi application, which is going to be able to share as far as what stocks we buy and sell amongst each other. It's an easy way that you connect to any trading platform, any person. It doesn't reveal your balances or percentages or number of shares. That case, it keeps it private. But you can see as far as what Chris, myself, or any other person in the group, or any person you want to connect with, period. It's due to launch in January. Feel free to jump on our waiting list. That's www.personafi.co. And then we also have a newsletter, which gives our stock plays, our option plays. We provide analysis. Chris, Dan, myself are the guys that put together that newsletter. We have worked in the industry as professionals. I do feel very passionately that we provide you a lot more in-depth analysis and very thoroughly vetted analysis on these different plays, and just kind of going through our minds of how we perceive things and how we're playing things. It's for information purposes. It's not going to be a recommendation that you should absolutely buy this, but we do also provide tips, educational material, $5.99. After the month of December, it goes up to $9.99. So by all means, get it while you can, because the price is going to pretty much double after this month. So I'll post that in the link. And want to thank Chris. Thank you guys for coming out, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, and then also I really want to say real quick, we noticed on the first 5-minute chart when the futures market opened, it hit that point. Look what happened 20 minutes ago. It approached that top resistance point. I just drew this right now, but notice that was really close, literally close within a point. So sometimes seeing, like going back to those wild swings, those can be important to see. Now, could this have gone past? Yeah, but I'm just saying, just when I drew this, I started to see that. So yeah. So and again, I'm Chris Haven, Haven. And as a day trader, I am a day/night trader. I will likely be up because my job's 24 hours a day. So if you message me, I'll likely answer. The only time I wouldn't answer is if I'm asleep. So yeah. So again, thank you for having me. Very humbled to be here and share my expertise. And just feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Yep. Thank you.